Hello, my conscious cocooners in the container of shelter and soul. And to any of you that are watching this video, I think I'm going to go ahead and place it on my YouTube channel as well, because this topic is so important, even though, I often do two separate videos, one for my folks going through the shelter and soul experience. I just feel like it's such an important topic right now. They happen to be hitting this place in the course right now of doing shadow work. And here we are in this collective experience, our collective transformational cycle, where things are getting, I've talked about it before, really, really stirred up for the purpose of seeing what needs to be healed, revealing what needs to be healed. And that's where we can talk about shadow work and connect the dots, right? Shadow is this collective shadow that we're seeing. It's all the underbelly of our nation that we haven't looked at, that we've pushed aside, we didn't want to face, we suppressed, we denied. These are aspects of shadow. And now we're seeing more of this in the news, these horrific stories. And for, Black Americans, it's not new news, but for a lot of us who maybe didn't want to look, or it wasn't in the mainstream media, we didn't know the extent of the shadow of racism, or we had a sense of it and we didn't look deep enough. And now we're all having to look, and we're all having to learn, and we're all going to need to adjust here. And that's what I think we're witnessing right now, the collision of the shadow and people wanting to keep things the way they were, but we cannot go back to what was. We have to face and look at everything that needs to be healed. And so we're in the real thick of it. We're in the real chaos of it. We're in the horrific, painful look, don't turn away, lean in. I'm going to get into how, the theory of shadow work comes from Carl Jung, what I understand about it in my own training and my own studies. And remember, when I do these videos, this is how I take in the information through my studies and my training and what it means to me. And I share from that place, and I also say, you're the expert of you. All of us should be doing our own research, coming to our own sense of this resonates with my soul. But right now, yes, shadows. Our shadows are being illuminated. The dark, suppressed underbelly of our collective and individual. Okay? So shadow, it seems, if you think about shadow, what is a shadow? Shadow is we're not in the light, right? We tend to lead with our identities, the things that are acceptable. We talked about persona and mask a little while back, but the things that are acceptable, or at least we have made to think, we think that they're acceptable because maybe when we were younger, we got a sense of what was accepted, what was not. That's how the shadow develops. I think that I always do this very simple version of shadow understanding, and then I'll get a little deeper with it. But again, so Carl Jung came up with this concept of shadow, and that is whatever is hidden, suppressed, denied because of judgment or shame. So I was going to follow my notes, but I just want to speak from my heart, so I may have to backtrack a little bit to fill in the details. I feel very moved today, and like many of you, very unsettled. Again, the unsettling, it's like all this stuff is getting stirred up. We're seeing it, aren't we? And it's hard to look at, but we can only heal what we look at, okay? So this is my simple version of what shadow work looks like from a perspective, which is what my work is, about claiming our potential and claiming our wholeness. And so I'll start there, and then I'll deepen the conversation about shadow and shadow work. So I think about, we come in, all of us, with this unique purpose and mission, and our authentic being, all radiant, ready to roll. But we have to navigate the world in this human form, and with the family of origins that we have. And the primary function, one of the primary functions again of the brain, mind, is to keep us safe. And we do that from by adapting. So I feel like we come in with all that we need to be all that we're meant to be. So think of it like a box of crayons, and not like a little box, like the full jumbo size of box of crayons you had when you were a kid, or maybe you still have. I have crayons still. And all the colors are there, every single one, all the variations of blue and orange and all of them. And they all represent an aspect of us. So they represent, aspects. Let's just say aspects. And then when we're younger and we get a sense of, ooh, when I'm being a little too loud or boisterous, I get kind of, shunned, or I get a certain look that tells me that's not okay. So I'm gonna put my, brilliant blue crayon away. Whatever we naturally would do, and we feel like it's not accepted, welcomed, or it's judged, or we're criticized for it, we take those crayons out and we put them away, take them away, hide them. We put them in the shadow. And then maybe some things that we see that we don't like, or that we were, we felt harmed by or felt pained by, like anger. I'm the baby of my family, and I'm also a Scorpio with a lot of water, very sensitive, empathic type, very, very sensitive. And my two older sisters are Aries. If you know anything about astrology, well, Aries are very forceful and very, they don't hold things back. They really just let it out, and that could look like anger. And so I saw my sisters being very, from my estimation and my judgment, again, this is filtering through my experience, but as very angry people. And I was sensitive to that, and I felt hurt by that. So what did I decide about anger? I'm going to take that bright red anger crayon out. I'm not going to be an angry person. No way, no how. And so I hid that, or suppressed it, or denied it. Okay. So this is kind of how the shadow develops. It's all the things like, uh-oh, that doesn't work. This doesn't work. I better not do that. And we hide it. Okay. So I'm talking about individual shadow right now, and I'll get into the collective a little bit more. So then now we don't have our full box of crayons anymore. We've got sort of empty, a few crayons to navigate our world with, to bring our personalities forward, to do what we're here to do, or not be able to do what we're here to do because the crayon or the quality or the aspect we needed is not available. Okay, that's my simplified version about shadow work that came to me, and I thought that makes sense. So really, you're trying to create your life right now with maybe a half box full of crayons. And we need the fullness of our being. We need all the choices, all the aspects for the fullness of our being and the fullness of our potential. So I'll just talk specifically about anger, because this one, when this clicked in my mind, it made so much sense. Again, I denied anger. I judged it. I'm not going to do that. Doesn't look good. Doesn't feel good. Don't want any anger. But anger is also, where is it helpful? When we do shadow work, we start to reclaim it and ask, where is this helpful? Where would it be helpful for me to not maybe be angry in the way that I saw it, but in that shade of, I always think of bright red for anger. Well, that could be assertive, more bold, but if I've denied the energy connected to anger, I lose the energy connected to assertiveness and boldness. I need that, right? So that's my simplified version. Now I want to talk about the collective, because we are in it. This is, I think, from my witnessing and just observing, I really honestly think that we have such a big shadow right now that is just looming over us, and we're seeing all that needs to be healed right now, because we went through many, many years of positive psychology, doing the spiritual bypasses, like think it away, pray it away, affirm it away, and not wanting to go underneath and look. I call it going under the hood, like what's really not working here, individually and collectively, okay? We just denied it. and we just kept trying to go forward, and everything's great. Apple pie in America. Yeah. You know, or I think, so this is what I feel. So that only got us so far, right? It's like there's a saying that, you know, we put whipped cream on a pile of crap. It looks like it might be okay, you know, or, you know, I think of positive psychology too, you know, which is beautiful work when we do our deeper dive too. Beautiful work. But here's my distinction here. The positive psychology movement of just affirming everything away, it's kind of like moving into a house and just getting a bunch of fluffy pillows and putting them out, and beautiful flowers, and, you know, some carpet, and it looks nice, looks beautiful, but there's cracks in the floor, and there's stuff in the basement that hasn't been addressed, and it's kind of smelly, and it's kind of, you know, so eventually the beauty of those sort of the facade of everything looks good, everything's great, will not work, and it'll crumble. Or the shadow, that what we denied, the things that we didn't look at in our closets, or the things that when we got triggered, just said an affirmation or a prayer and said, I'm all better, started rising up again. And at some point, it rises so high that we're overwhelmed by it. And I feel like that's what we're experiencing right now. We would not look at the things we needed to look at. And now we're seeing them, and we're needing to face it and unlearn what we learned, you know, and be willing to learn anew. You know, shadow work, you know, I was first introduced to shadow work by the popular book by Debbie Ford. And let's see if I can remember the title. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, I think is the name of the book. Classic book, very little book, but so deep, so rich, so powerful. So I recommend you get that book, but I also recommend that you watch her movie. I think it's just simply called The Shadow Effect. And if I'm correct, I believe it is available on YouTube right now. And there's something that Debbie does in the book, and I think it's in the movie as well, that was so astonishing to me when I read it years ago, where she connects the moment when she identifies that she is a racist. And she shares a story of working with a woman in one of her classes who she was just really in struggle with. And I don't remember the fullness of the story, but she identifies, you know, she's dealing with this woman who she's triggered by, and this woman is a black woman. But there's no way she would consider she was a racist. It wasn't possible. Like many of us think, there's no way I'm a racist. Not possible. But here's the thing. If you grew up in America and you're not a person of color, good chance that there's a shadow of racism in you. That makes me cry because it's so deep and it's so true and it's so real. And that's the work we need to do. We need to really look that deep for all of us. Okay, this collective shadow is so big. How do we deal with it? We deal with this one here. So the things, here's how we do the work. Let's get into the work now. We do the work by this simple entry point. One of the entry points is when we're triggered, when we are in judgment, when we're in fear. But really it's the triggering, like somebody, some issue, something bothers us. It's rattling the cage behind us in the shadows where all of the aspects of us we denied live. That we need to open up that gate, invite them back into our lives, into our light, into our love, to embrace these shadowy parts so that they don't have as much power over us, and that we integrate individually and then we integrate collectively. This is such a big topic to do a quick version on. I'm just sharing my sort of understanding and take of it, okay? So just do the simple things, the simple ways I do my shadow work, okay? Number one, when I'm triggered, and these days there's a lot to be triggered by. There's a saying in shadow work, If you spot it, you've got it. If you spot it, you've got it. So if someone is triggering you, where is that true for me? What is the quality that is triggering me? I've talked about our leader in the White House being one of my main triggering people, and I think a lot of people have that same thing. We can look at one attribute that is most triggering for me. Picking one is hard because there's so many. What I see is just kind of just this belligerent and selfish, and the mocking really. Oh, when I witness what appears to me, and I want to say, here's the main thing. Here's the main thing about shadow work, is that we are projecting like 95% of the time. Everything we're seeing out in our external worlds comes through here, okay? Filtered out through all of our past experiences, associations, references, outward. So, so obviously, there are some things that are true. Like, there are a lot of people that would agree with me that things that trigger me also trigger them. That's what Jung called a hook. That some people have a hook, which is kind of a very close fit to what we're projecting on to them. Okay. So back to what I do with that. Or bullying is another one. Bullying is a big one for me. That really just, lets me feel my anger, which is not a bad thing. So, where am I a bully? Where is the energy of bully alive in me? Where have I denied that I'm a bully? Where have I experienced being bullied? And I just sort of bring it forward to the light. And then the next step, just acknowledge it does exist. It exists in me. The thing that triggers you exists in you, but it's suppressed or hidden or denied, or you haven't accepted it. Okay? So it's the bringing it forward first and then doing the acceptance work around it, which is, again, no easy deal. So bringing it forward that way. Now, there's that shadow, which is the negative shadow, but then there's also Jung called it the golden shadow, where we admire people. We just, we elevate them for their qualities, their way of being. And what we're really doing is we're seeing in them what is in us. Again, you spot it, you got it. But we may have it, but it's so suppressed that we're not even present to it in ourselves. So the golden shadow is very powerful and good to work with too. And I do a process where you think about the people you admire so you can call back your shadow and integrate that, because you need those aspects as well. I just went to this amazing conference with a lot of powerful people, and it was interesting to witness myself going in and out of the shadow. I wasn't really that much in the negative shadow this time, honestly, because there were so many amazing people and presenters that I could feel myself just like, wow, like fangirling out, like, wow, they're amazing. And also doing a sort of a comparison thing. I am not that. So, when we fall into that trap of comparison, it's also a great place to say, you spot it, you got it. So if you're comparing yourself and you're falling short in that comparison, like, wow, I did some dream work with Marianne Williamson, was in one of my dreams, and I just think she's amazing. She's brilliant, she's wise, she's confident, and she's powerful. And she's just an eloquent speaker. I'm amazed by her, and I compare myself to her, especially when I'm doing these videos. Like, Marianne doesn't stumble over her words, and she seems really clear and concise and deep and wise, and she just speaks such profound wisdom easily and effortlessly. So, all right, I spot it. I see it in her. So that means that's a potential in me. So yay, I'm going to keep practicing, because those things I admire in her are just, it's my potential. And I'm practicing and practicing and practicing, and I'm calling that forward in me, front and center. So So that's the other side of shadow. So the people you admire, again, so here's how I work with it. I see that in her, must be true for me. Where can this be true for me? And where would this help me to be more like that? Even with the negative shadow, where would it be helpful for me to be more, to embrace my anger? I'm not going to say to be more angry or to be a bully, but to embrace and not deny and not judge, but to embrace it and even love it. Wow, there's the stretch point with working with the negative shadow. Can I love the bully? Well, you know what? If I love the bully in me first, and there is a bully in me, and the bully lives in my mind, and it's the critical one in me. It's the one that when I want to try something new, tries to convince me I would not be good enough, and, you know, tries to talk me out of it. It's one aspect of my critic, the bully. So think about, you know, think about the bully in like elementary school. And I'm sure, actually, oh, what? Okay. Connecting my own dots. I'm remembering now, and this is going to be shocking for some of you because I'm such a peacekeeper now. When I was in elementary school, I was a latchkey kid. You know, my mom was always working, and I was kind of on my own, and I had a lot of emotions and a lot of issues and a lot of stuff that I needed a parent to be present to help me, and how that articulated was a needing attention. I was a bully. I was a bully in elementary school. I mean, I've worked with this before, but it's flashing so bright in my mind right now that, believe it or not, I used to pick fights with people, with girls in elementary school. And I still remember this one situation. I'm going so long into this story. Oh gosh, 21 minutes. I got to wrap up. I'll share the story for those of you who want it in another video. But let me just say this. I learned in elementary school it wasn't okay to be a bully, and I suppressed it. Now, but where would that be helpful for me today? I'll tell you where. When I feel like sometimes I don't like conflict, oftentimes I don't like conflict, and if I've suppressed the energy connected to bully, which is connected to strength and standing up for yourself, not in a bullying way. Now, this is the distinction. It doesn't mean it looks like the person that triggers you, but the energy of bully. Once it's embraced and loved, it dissolves into a usable commodity of energy. Very tricky stuff. So let me just leave this video here. You spot it, you got it. That's your work. Everything in the external world that's triggering you or inspiring you, that's yours to cultivate, to work with, to embrace, to love, to integrate into the wholeness and the fullness of your being, to put all those crayons back in your box for this very moment, for what is needed to come through you. Okay, so I hope all this made sense. I kind of rambled in different places. It's such a deep subject. I should have allotted for at least an hour on this video, but trying to keep these videos relatively short. We have all got a lot going on right now. So honor yourself by doing this deeper dive, by taking what's triggering you on the external and finding it within you. And it's like diving for gold. It's like once we go into the shadowy currents of our inner being, and this deep dive, and coming up with through the muck to, you know, clean off, to embrace with love, to say, well, what is the essence of this quality that I need to embrace? And so this is so much, obviously, a bigger conversation, but I think I'll just leave it with that. We're all in this together, and our work individually, our inner work, our shadow work, our soul work, contributes to the collective unfolding. So I think this is really important work for all of us to do right now. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I'll probably do a follow-up video because this is a really big subject. So my heart is with all of you, and I know we've got this. This is the hard push through, not only the class that you're taking with me and the place that you are in your life, but collectively in this unfolding world. All my love to you. We've got this.